I think the biggest shift, to be honest, that I'm observing at the moment for the last year or so is the whole AI, obviously optimized, whether it's marketing or coding, that you just see so many SaaS products going out into the market. A lot of them are really rubbish, but a lot of them are actually fairly good.
Uwe Dreissigacker is the founder and CEO of InvoiceBerry and co-founder of BlogHandy, a no-code blogging tool made for marketers who hate WordPress. He's a SaaS founder with 20-plus years of experience, from building ad networks with 1 billion impressions to ranking above native platforms on Perplexity. In this episode, he shares how curiosity, content, and clever use of AI shaped his path.
What's super important for any business right now is to get ready for LLM optimization, right? In order to be ranked in LLMs. I was completely against AI content, to be honest, but then I understood it depends how you use it. I think AI content is actually really good and most people probably don't care.
So how are you adopting with overall content strategy and growth strategy and channels, both at InvoiceBerry and BlogHandy?
What's important is once you get started, just look at your own problems, talk to people in your industry about their problems and just try to solve them.
Transitioning from gaming to building an ad network with 1 billion monthly impressions in a year. Any key lessons that you'd want to give out to our young listeners today?
E-coffee with experts.
Hi, Uwe. How's it going?
Hey, Ranmay. Thanks a lot for having me on the podcast.
Lovely. Before we move any forward, let's get to know more about you. How were you growing up as a kid? How did you got into the digital marketing space? What do you guys do? What do you guys specialize in? And we'll take it off from there.
All right. Yeah, perfect. Let me give you like the 1 or 2 minute intro of the last 25 years of my life.
Go for it.
So I used to play a lot of online games, like probably most kids did back in the day. I was really terrible at playing games. So I started my own game with the idea of, cheating. But yeah, it was actually, I even failed in my own game. But this sort of led me initially like 20 years into the online space, into programming, into some, marketing. From gaming, where I went into online advertisement to make money with the games. From that, I went into ad server technology. And that basically led me to SaaS before SaaS was really something I knew about. And probably the term didn't even exist back then. And years later, I was still in SaaS. I was running a SaaS company called InvoiceBerry, and we started doing content marketing because paid ads. I used to be in paid ads. It got very expensive at some point, so I changed into inbound content marketing. SEO, became very good with it. And unfortunately, back then, like 10, 15 years ago, WordPress was the only solution. I hated it from day one, but I sort of had to use WordPress for blog. And then I came up with the idea of, hey, there needs to be a simpler solution. I always had it in the back of my mind. And then maybe like 4 or 5 years ago, I finally started working on BlogHandy, which is my current gig. It took us a few years because it initially was a side project. And then we launched probably a couple years ago, BlogHandy, which is a no-code blogging tool. And the idea behind it was that if someone has a custom-coded website like we had, you just put in one little code snippet and it loads a blog for you and that's it, right? So you don't have to do any WordPress installation or have any, complexity of WordPress or any of the other blog builders that are out there. And it's just super simple. You can share access with your writers and, you can just get busy with your content marketing.
Absolutely. And transitioning from gaming to building an ad network with 1 billion monthly impressions in a year. Any key lessons that you'd want to give out to our young listeners today?
I think like everything in my life. So, that was obviously just like the 100-second quick pitch of like 20 plus years. But everything has been like a reaction to whatever happened before, right? So the games, I wanted to make money. I talked to advertisers and we, had ads on our own games. Then I talked to other people and I knew they also want to make money. So I helped them and we started our own ad network and, then we started our ad tech software and so on and so on. So I think what's important is once you get started, just look at your own problems, talk to people in your industry about their problems and just try to solve them. Because literally every business in the last 24 years I've started was a reaction to a previous problem I had. And that literally goes down back to like my gaming days when I was 14, 15 years old.
Lovely, lovely. And talking about 14 years, get immersed in SaaS, right? You've seen enough summers and winters in terms of how the SaaS space overall has evolved, right? So, what are some strategic shifts like, you feel were like monumental in the last decade or so?
So that's a tough one. I do think, so it depends. I've always been super bullish in the marketing of my SaaS companies with inbound marketing. So I always tried the slower but more organic approach. But I have seen a lot of people being successful maybe 7, 8, 9 years ago with paid ads. And it's not as successful anymore because it's just so competitive and so expensive. So I've seen a lot of people either jumping into SEO or nowadays into LLM optimization, trying to get ranked on, Perplexity or ChatGPT. I've seen a lot of smaller SaaS companies going super niche and doing well in cold email outreach, which I didn't expect, to be honest. And I think the biggest shift, to be honest, that I'm observing at the moment for the last year or so is the whole AI, obviously optimized, whether it's marketing or coding, that you just see so many SaaS products going out into the market. A lot of them are really rubbish, but a lot of them are actually fairly good,
Very good,
or at least have like a really tiny micro SaaS functionality. So I think we used to have these all-in-one tools, and we used to compete with these tools that literally want to cover the entire business. And now we're going again a bit into this tool does this one particular thing very well. And that might be something that we're going to see for the next year or two. And maybe then again, it's going to shift to more like fully fledged tools. I'm not sure, to be honest.
Absolutely. You touched upon AI, so obviously there are a lot of AI tools, a lot of AI stuff happening. But if you were to pick up one thing, one best use of AI that you are making at this point, what would that be?
I think we use it at a lot of places at the moment. So it's like in terms of at BlogHandy in particular. So our solution is that you put in, the code snippet and it just automatically adjusts to your existing website design, which is like quite nice compared to, someone installing WordPress and they need to hire a designer to make it look the same as your website. So in our case, I'd say in 70% of cases, you just put in the plugin and it just works and it looks the same as your website instantly. But then we have these 20, 30% of cases where people use website builders where this doesn't work. And in these cases, you used to actually need a junior developer to adjust CSS code for the customer, unless the customer can do it themselves. And now, in most cases, we can use AI, where we literally use AI, we go to their website, we check, AI is checking how does it look, and then adjusts the code accordingly. Basically, we were able to minimize the amount of times we need a junior dev or like a front-end dev to help in customer support, which is quite nice. It's good for the customer. It's faster. It's good for us, right? We save a lot of development time and have better customer support. So I think that's like a very big aspect for us personally at the moment and with the AI usage.
Absolutely. And since we're talking about AI, let's kind of move on to content from there. As someone deeply rooted in content strategy yourself, what role, what is your current philosophy on content in 2025? And I speak with a lot of business owners, a lot of content marketing agencies, and all of them have their own ways of doing it. But yeah, I would love to understand your opinion on this.
So we talked a lot with people about it, and I'm definitely against the idea to say, hey, write the blog post about topic X, you put it into ChatGPT and you just copy paste whatever ChatGPT does, because I think it adds very little value. So initially I was completely against AI content, to be honest, but then I understood it depends how you use it. Just when we use AI for the customer support, right? It depends on the user's input. So we've been experimenting a lot with that, where we say, if you give very specific directions, I think you really can improve your content with the usage of AI. So whether it's in keyword research to bounce back and forth with AI and, some data APIs, whether it's using like Ahrefs or whether it's using data for SEO or any of the other tools. Also, when trying to structure blog posts and then, and not just doing one request to ChatGPT, but to, having sort of like a back and forth workflow. I think AI content is actually really good and most people probably don't care. I mean, at the end of the day, you're reading a blog post to figure out a problem, right? You're not trying to understand, is this AI content or not? As long as it's helpful, it's good.
Absolutely. And with SEO changing so fast, right? How are you adopting? And you are an owner of multiple businesses, right? So how are you adopting with overall content strategy and growth strategy and channels, both at InvoiceBerry and BlogHandy?
So what we've been doing, initially it was an accident and then we were sliding into it, which is always the nicest, I guess. So at BlogHandy, we saw already 2 years ago, especially in the last 12 months, we saw more and more people mentioning, say, founders through Perplexity or ChatGPT or Gemini. And it was interesting. The first one was Perplexity. Like a lot of people mention, on the sign up form, which is also super important, right? Like when you run a SaaS, always ask, where do you come from, and leave them like an open field, because we didn't actually have any LLMs in our drop-down menu. But then we had like this other field and we had more and more people with Perplexity. So I think what's super important for any business right now is to get ready for LLM optimization, right? In order to be ranked in LLM. So when someone searches for, best blogging platforms, that BlogHandy turns up. And we actually accidentally were sliding into that, where a few months ago even, I asked Perplexity, how can I add a blog to Weebly, which is one of the website builders? And BlogHandy was ranking as number 1 before Weebly's own native blogging solution. So, then we obviously started to reverse engineer. How did this happen? How did we literally rank before the actual native blog of this website builder? And I think this is super important because people just often ask nowadays AI and it just takes a first solution. So if you can be visible as a number 1 solution, I think that's amazing.
Lovely. Great, Uwe. This has been a great conversation. But before we let you go, I would like to play a quick rapid fire with you. I hope you're game for it.
Sure.
All right. Your last Google search.
Jesus. I don't know. It was something about blogging on BlogHandy. Like I was literally checking if we were ranking for one of our blog posts. So it's pretty boring.
Okay. All right. Your celebrity crush.
Celebrity crush. Jason Fried. Oh, Jesus. That's like random. I can't think of anyone else. He's a guy from Basecamp. That's the reason why I started SaaS, actually.
Nice. Okay. What did you do with your first paycheck of your life?
Went for beers. I invited all my mates. So I was 16 in Germany. You're allowed to drink with 16. Well, I was 15, but you can snuck into the bar. And I invited everyone of my mates for beers. Yeah.
Lovely. What is that one thing that you feel you could have changed, if you go back to your younger self as a businessman?
That goes a bit with the first one. I think I quite early was quite successful. And this sounds really maybe not the best advice for younger people to listen, but I was saving up too much. I wasn't rewarding myself except for the odd, inviting mates for beers. I actually was saving up all the money rather than as well enjoying, the success, which I think is very important to, celebrate certain milestones.
Absolutely. I agree. Perfect, Uwe. This has been a great conversation and I can't thank you much for taking out time to do this with us. Really appreciate it, man.
Thanks a lot for having me on the podcast, Ranmay.